All right, John. So we're back. This is part two. If people missed the first one, the part one of this particular interview, they should go back and listen to it because we cover all of sort of your history in the world of martial arts, fighting, combative, self-defense, all the people. You mentioned a lot of people in episode one, and we talk about a lot of philosophy and also a lot about the industry and just kind of where people are coming from and what they're seeing, how they're misinterpreting it. And my big thing was like, I'm trying to sort of figure out this whole space, sift through it. It's been a little bit mysterious to me. We talked a little bit about sort of those reasons why, but where we left off was you were talking about kind of what your three big goals were in terms of your approach to demystifying it and really helping people work their way through what this whole space kind of looks like and through their own journey. So maybe we can just start there with you kind of maybe reviewing those. And then I got lots of questions about the summit and how you're going to fulfill those goals.
Yeah, I mean the main goal is my three goals are really all about bridging the gap between all the different areas of training. Um, what we see generally is people they approach training in this kind of compartmentalized manner, or they are just throwing everything together, and there is no real systematic approach. Like for instance, we're going to do scenario training today, and these people barely know how to operate a pistol, just as a kind of a microcosm representation of that. Um, it's what I want to do is essentially provide and develop like a linear progression in terms of being someone who is just, for lack of a better word, they don't have physical capability. So it's like,
Novice.
all right, so yes, exactly. And the first thing we're going to do is I think you should go through a linear progression. You should know um, what your strength is, because strength is that's just how you interact with the reality and just how you interact with the world.
So you mean, so time out for a second. So you mean like physical strength? Well, certainly there's going to be some mental, fortitude or intestinal fortitude there. You're talking about like strength, physical strength, the amount of force I can put into something or someone.
Yeah. Providing, force against an external resistance.
Gotcha.
And that sounds very vague, but if you look at it, that
isn't.
That's also a fight. That's also lifting.
Okay.
It's external resistance. Something wants to coerce you, or it wants to bring you down, like gravity, and you have to work against that. Um, so that's one of my main goals, is just bridging the gap there, realizing people, you do need to be healthy. You do need to be strong. The top 10 causes of mortality are health and mental health related. And I think a lot of people, they take these mindset classes and they're looking for the byproduct of what just difficult physical training would give them.
Now you're speaking my language.
Right.
Yeah, man.
So that's the first goal, right? And that's doing that with starting strength, providing the lift, fight, shoot camp that we do with them. The second goal is giving people the means to articulate what it is that they're actually doing when they are using force. A lot of what happens is people, they get into some kind of physical altercation, whether you're a cop, soldier, just a private citizen, and it's just a lot of spazzing. Like there's no really understanding of what's going on. People will, they made me scared, and then all of a sudden I knew. I just pulled my gun out, shot him. It's like, okay, so what you're telling me is that you are so incredibly emotionally impulsive that they made you scared and you decided to smoke them. Like that's not going to hold up in court. I mean, I think people are very good at recognizing what happens, how to do things kinetic. They understand kinetic application or what that looks like, but I don't think they really understand what is the unrelenting beast that is a legal system that will come after you and everything you have if you're not doing that right. So I one of the things I like to say, like, it's not about the odds, but what's at stake. And I think for a lot of instructors, they like that, and they'll parrot that, but not understanding the stakes as an instructor means that you're responsible for both the success and the failures of your student. And that is something that I don't think many people consider as far as when they hire people. I mean, you got to hire people and go visit people and get training from them based on knowledge, skills, and ability. And what they did yesteryear is irrelevant. So maybe it checks one of those boxes, but it doesn't check all three.
I would
Um,
agree with you 100%. I think that's a lot of what, well, if you get into fitness and the firearms side of thing, this is firearms training. This is what's talked about quite frequently, and it's often called out. And there is a court of public opinion there that exists, but there's also, I would just say, factions or folks that take sort of a lead role, and that doesn't sound very good. We should probably have a conversation about that, and maybe you agree or disagree, but we're calling this out because there is fundamentally something wrong with this in their mind, and or whatever, or this is an egregious violation of something, whatever that is, and it's not a tactics thing. It's a fundamentals thing, as usually the arguments sort of go that direction. And when I say arguments, I think the debates and just kind of the conversation. So in the world you're talking about, again, coming back to like the mystery or the misunderstandings that go in there, many of them cross over. But God, when it comes to like what they see, like in a fight with a knife, with fists, with whatever, a machete, for God's sakes, is what we're seeing out there nowadays. Like, where do all those things start and stop with regard to fundamentals? What's okay? What's not okay? And I mean, you mentioned a big one, which again, this just gets overlooked. Like, what happens when there is an end to this, and that ends in somebody being seriously injured or even killed? What's the instructor's responsibility for this in the end? I think the bigger problem is what you're trying to identify, or what you have identified, is instructors aren't thinking like that. They're not thinking about the liability that they hold in the information that they're giving somebody, and that they might not, that client or that student knows no better. They're taking everything that you're saying at your word, and that this is the way. And that's a problem, particularly in general, but it's a problem particularly when it comes to consequences of those things, the negative side of things. So I appreciate that.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's true. It's sad but true that most training that goes on, even in the private sector, it's an there that students kind of take an anti-intellectual approach. Um, they don't really. I mean, things are changing now, but I mean, you see this in the jujitsu circles and martial arts circles, fitness circles, whatever. People don't really think about the information that they're being fed. They see this person who is essentially, they have an authority figure relationship to the student, and with that, they just don't really question what it is that they do, and they kind of just take it at face value.
Hmm.
Maybe the instructor set up a drill of some kind that kind of reinforces it, but I don't think people, they have the frame of reference to whether they can understand, like, okay, this drill was deliberately set up for the success of reiterating this instructor's material.
Hmm.
Um, and like for me personally, and just for the circles I run in, when we run scenarios and drill, we tell students overtly, I don't know what's going to happen, and that's great, because at that point, then I'll reemphasize the point, like, you don't have to trust my word on this. You can actually trust your own experience with what
Right.
I said here, and it may inform you to go a whole other direction, that is like not stay training with me and what it is I do. Maybe you just got to go get in the gym. Maybe you got to go get some blood work done. Maybe you got to go sign up for jujitsu, or you know what I mean? It's like it informs you, and like, okay, hey, let's talk about what happened. And then we can kind of extrapolate there as far as like where the failures occurred, why those things happen. And then, I'm giving advice that's going to help you personally, because I actually care about your success. And if that looks like training with me again, great. If it looks like not training with me, maybe you need to go sign up for starting strength or red dot fitness or something like that.
Yep.
That's great too. I mean, your life's improving either way. Um, so I think there's a lot of, like, people look at things more, or there's a lot of people being treated like a bottom line, and they're not realizing it because they're not thinking about the process that they're actually going through.
Yeah, I would refer to that as like a holistic approach. The way you're taking it, a holistic approach to the training, the education, and the journey, and that is, while some things need to be siloed with regard to, well, you need to do some strength training. And in a sense, that's siloing something part of the training versus, hey, today we're in the gym with the gis on or something else. But you're siloing it. But the looking at the broader picture of like how do all these pieces fit together. And I think what you said there was there's so many healthy outcomes or byproducts of applying the strength training, or however you want to look at it, you're defining it as strength, and that strength really is the root for all the other things that end up coming up, I think, beyond the health and wellness piece, but to the performance piece. Because power and speed is rooted in strength. Capacity, your ability to maintain, is going to be rooted in how much strength, power, and speed you have. So if you don't have that from the get-go, you're going to find out real quick or at some point what the limits to those are. And you used me as an example before, and I kind of joked about it and saying like, hey, I survived on the mat a lot of times because I was bigger and stronger and faster than a lot of dudes. But I found the limits of that because my capacity I could only maintain that for so long, or the other person just got tired of it or whatever and was able to and I just didn't know, like my knowledge didn't match up with how much power and strength that I had. So I got myself in a situation
that are technically better than me that okay, I got to beast this guy because he's technically better. So I'm just going to fucking get physical and just maul this motherfucker.
Right.
Like,
that's been my whole life. Like I've just been trying to muscle and power my way through shit my entire life. And sometimes I'm successful at it. And sometimes that backfires. So, okay. Again, I don't want to go on about this, but you're not telling somebody like, you do this, then you do that, then that makes you successful, so you can then do this. This is what I'm gathering. This is the way I want you to look at it.
We want to take a process-driven approach on all the things. So process-driven approach on your fitness. I like starting strength because if it's going to work for geriatric people, it's certainly going to work for people kind of in their midlife phase, right? It's going to definitely work for people on the prime of their life. And it's just, John Wellborn, he said something that stuck with me where he said that strength is the platform that all other attributes are built on. And I really believe that. I think as far as injury prevention, staying in the game longer, doing your sport longer, mitigating risk for injury or recovering from injury quicker, strength is the way to go. If you're strong, you get those benefits.
What's interesting to me is when I look sort of at the characters, and we'll talk about them again, that are in this space, the circles that you run in, including yourself. When I submit, maybe this is the way of looking at it. When you hear them talk, just watching them, if you just turn the sound off and you watch them speak and you just looked at their stature, how they're built, how they're put together, these are the guys that have spent time in the weight room, right? Or have spent a lot of time in the weight room. And you mentioned something before, like nobody's going to go pick on generally people are not going to try to start a fight with a Scott Howell looking dude, right? And there's some truth in that, right? At least they're going to think about it. They're going to calculate it. A lot of guys have. I'm not going to, and it's never caught me off guard. My point is they're going to pick targets that they think they can go after. The point of this is these guys have recognized this is important. They've all done it. They're doing it. And versus the McDojo type dude who is trying to, through social media, sell you something about this technique or this system that all it's rooted in is the system versus all the things that make the system work, whether he knows it or not, or would work. Maybe it doesn't. My point being strength and the mental strength that comes along with that.
Those type of guys, they're not really trying to solve your problem. They're trying to sell you what they do and solve your problem through the lens of what it is that they do. And a lot of times what happens there is what they do is exactly wrong for your problem. It actually exacerbates it. It makes it worse.
Weird.
So students and clients, they deserve more than my bias. I mean, so this is why I think the industry's changing. I think there's a trend changing where it's like you just can't be one dimensional. You can't be compartmentalized. You can't. I think the NRA instructors, there's a place for that, but it's kind of becoming more collegiate in a lot of ways, and we're recognizing who who are the deep thinkers, who are the people with a lot of wrinkles in their brain, and kind of who are actually thinking at that higher level and understand a systematic, holistic approach to putting the pieces together. We have the foundation of fitness or strength, then we lay on this knowledge and understanding of what it is, whether it's your rule of engagement or the law. Then we lay on from there some kind of understanding of de-escalation, verbal skills, actionable way, and not just giving blanket service or lip, a blanket statements and lip service, but actually providing actionable skills. Then we layer that on with some empty hand defense, then some firearms, putting all these things together. Very few people are doing that, but you do see more of them coming up, at least interested in the idea.
Yeah, I've mentioned this. Maybe I mentioned this in the last episode previously, but you see a lot of people doing things in different ways. Some of them, from the outside onlooker, that might look very similar or the same. Let's be honest, you have to make a commitment to going to these things to see what they're about and what you're actually getting from it. We talked about the difficulty or the challenges that exist in trying to do this through social media. It's very tough, right, to deliver any kind of quality messaging through there in a lot of ways, particularly in this. Again, there's mystery around and misunderstanding. But there is this, I guess when you look at it, you kind of look at people that they're rolling around in the grass with, headgear and gloves on and maybe some blue guns or some sim guns, or they're in a dirt gravel pit somewhere, or maybe they're in a gym or something else. And that's kind of like the sizzle reel to get somebody to kind of listen. And then you see other guys that are really talking about this. You mentioned like wrinkles in the brain. I think this is the missing piece. And I mentioned this before about people like, I'm not getting it. I'm not getting it. This guy sounds like he knows what I'm talking about. He knows what he's talking about, and I get it, but he's almost too articulate in some cases when I listen to people. And I think what they get is, or what I'm saying is they don't really understand what they're being told. So you have to go experience this and experience all the rights and the wrongs and be surprised. But that articulation, and you said the layering goes back to this holistic approach. There's all these pieces that going into the know when and when not to do something. And we don't see that in a systems built program. It's if this, then that. That to me is a red flag. If this, then that. It's more of the when to and when not to, and then there's levels to everything.
Yeah, like you'll see a lot of like speaking to the sizzle reels, right? You'll see like a lot of these flash maps, super fast.
Mhm.
I do 3 moves for every one, and again, right? We just talked about physical attributes and the importance of them, but I think, and then also we see something that's an objective measure, such as like a shot timer, and I think what really gets lost in translation is that speed is great, accuracy is great, but the real speed actually comes from timing, right? So imagine like let's look at like think about two boxers fighting, right? And then he moves, right? He has kind of a Philly shell defense. He shoulder rolls, comes in, and then just kind of comes out of nowhere with the uppercut, right?
Mhm.
So was it the speed of the uppercut or just the commitment and the timing of the punch from his opponent and the counter? So that's what I mean, right? So like I put up a video with Craig Douglas discussing how he uses language to pattern people, and just
Mhm.
like you see how this guy, he's giving permission, then all of a sudden he boom, pulls out of his pocket. That was still a sub-second draw. That was still, however fast that somebody wants to measure on a USPSA target. But when you're working against somebody and something that is resistant, that they get a vote, the timing, that's where the real speed is coming from. And I think it's really going over people's heads because they're mainly working with stationary targets. They're mainly working with something that doesn't resist them. And the one thing I'll say to that is I love the pursuit of performance shooting. It's awesome. But I don't think you can make warriors on gun ranges. I just
Mhm.
don't. And there's no special operations selection in the world that I've heard of. I mean, I've watched them all on TV. I haven't seen one course of fire yet. It's all physical grit. Can you put out physical effort and think? And
Mhm.
that's what a fight is like. So maybe there's some other stuff, but as far as like what I've seen on TV, what I've read about, I haven't heard about A Course of Fire.
I think that's a really great place to transition, because what we're talking about, what we've been leading up to, is this combative summit that you put together that we talked about a little bit before. Let's talk about this and how the messaging that you're giving right now is very much a part of what people will get at the Combative Summit, from what I understand in my conversations with you. Because I think there's something to be said for, you go to a class or a weekend seminar or whatever, so you get 16 hours, right? And the idea is, I'm going to try to absorb all this information in 16 hours and somehow walk away better at whatever the goal of the class was for that person, or even for that instructor. That can mean many things. That can mean a lot of different things. The point of that is what was delivered. It tends to be a very dense amount of information that a lot of times is revolving around some kind of a system or techniques. Like, we're going to teach you 3 techniques, and then we're going to practice those techniques over the course of this 16 hours, and you're going to see how they kind of fit together. I don't think that's fine. Altogether, I don't think that's bad. But what you're talking about, I think what you put together with Combative Summit, at least what I'm gathering, particularly with a lot of the media you're putting out from last year's summit, is, while there may be some of that, that is very little of the whole. So can you break down Combative Summit and kind of what's going on, who's going to be there, what somebody should expect? I'll have some questions about this, but I'll just let you start wherever you want on it.
Sure. So first, to address that kind of like technique driven approach. I mean, one thing I think is lost even in the firearm space. I've came into the performance shooting space kind of like an outsider, right? I came into this more like a martial artist. I was a soldier a while, but I looked at this from the lens of like combatives. Like, there's not really like the techniques that we do in combatives. You can name it. It doesn't matter which one it is. They're more about, they serve a purpose in making you understand the principle. And
Mhm.
there is training methods to where you are getting the opportunity to practice those techniques. It puts you in those positions. The training method is to essentially contextualize the technique. So let's say, for instance, you're fighting, someone's trying to take you down. All right. So what we're going to first work on is understanding how to use head control, how to maintain posture, how to pummel, how to clinch first. And then from there, you understand, okay, this is how I take somebody down. This is how I affect posture. This is how I maintain my posture. You understand? So the techniques are really byproducts of the training methods. And if you take that approach, you realize that every single martial art has a tactic. All right. Maybe this one is how to use a knife. Boxing's tactic is how to bludgeon somebody with my fist until they can no longer fight back effectively.
Mhm.
Jiu-jitsu is about putting somebody on the ground and controlling them and finishing them with either a strangle or a joint, some kind of joint break, and so on. Right? Every martial art is that way, and what we've done is, and the techniques are really representations of what end state that martial art wants. So what we've done with Combative Summit is that we are using martial arts, elements of it, using, not doing them. We've decided to extract elements of various martial arts for our tactical end state and see exactly what and where these things fit to solve the tactical problem that we're going to be running across. So people are going to come away with a lot more methods and ways to train and ways to pressure test what it is that they learn, as opposed to like a Rolodex of techniques.
That's a fantastic explanation. I was just having this conversation with some other really smart dudes in sort of the firearm space, and the strength and conditioning space, they kind of cross over. And the point of this was there's something lost with folks not understanding how to train when they leave. So when they leave a 16-hour course, like, what have you left them with to then take away and get better with? And so whether that's additional resources, or the thing that you provided was, okay, there's techniques, but I don't know how to get better at these techniques. Or where to even go to begin getting better with these techniques. I have these things. Okay, how do I practice this? And they want to do the cool thing. They want to be able to perform the thing when it matters or when it counts. But outside of the 16 hours hands-on, however much of that was hands-on, which isn't the whole 16 hours, they have very few reps. They may have got, like, if in a class of, I don't know, let's call it 12 people, how many reps did they actually get in those 16 hours? So how do you go out and do the things fundamentally to then maybe go do the reps to be better at the reps that you're performing? And so I think that's what I hear you saying is, like, we're going to teach you, we're going to walk you through how to get better at this, or the things that you should be focused on to ultimately get better at this, right? Are we on the same page?
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. So I'm glad that's exactly the message I'm trying to send. So I'm glad that's what you received, and I hope the listeners, that's what they received too. This is more like combatives is more about reduction and being congruent and being concise about exactly what it is that you're trying to achieve. So sometimes you'll go to a course or like a lot of jujitsu guys are getting into, and I don't mean to knock jujitsu guys, but it's like, I do that because I'm a jujitsu guy. So that way I'm not trying to like passive aggressively take shots at people, but,
I love how you have to do that. the
right.
disclaimer,
Just to,
just so nobody gets their feelings hurt. It's
yeah, man,
awesome.
it's fucking terrible. Anyway,
Here,
so
here we are. It's the world we live in. I got
right.
it.
So anyway, yeah. So like jujitsu guys, they want to get into the space and they're exploring. So a lot of times what they're doing, they'll have two guys grappling and they'll toss a blue gun in.
Mhm.
That's great. I'm glad that they're doing that. But at best, that's a dice game, right? It's fun. It's productive. Sometimes you win and you get to feel good about yourself, but
Mhm.
it's not necessarily training for a specific end state. I mean,
Mhm.
typically weapons are not introduced that way. So we're going to be talking to people. There's like 44 hours of instruction over 3 days from 18 different instructors with real experience doing what it is that they're doing. All of these guys they were trying to solve a problem specific for them. They are the products of their product. They didn't come up with something to meet a market demand and just push it out
Mm.
there based on something they did at another place. All these guys have produced their own body of work and or their own original material with their own semantics and lexicons and
Mhm.
whatever it is you want to call it, their own language as far as how they communicate this material to people, and they've been teaching it for several years, and with success, students with success, and I think that's really unique.
It's very unique, and I think the key word in the title of the event is summit. It's not a course, and I think that's different than what you see a lot of. Uh, it's very different than I think what the norm is for anything in sort of the martial arts or um, firearms or even fitness space. I've been to a lot of, like, summits in the fitness industry, and what those generally are is, you have the opportunity to go listen to sort of experts in the field, people that work in niche areas, talk about their experience or the thing that they're currently working on or have worked on and seems to gotten some success with. So you can go in and take away pieces, or more importantly, what I think is just the exposure to the things, whatever those are, expected or unexpected, as a participant, listener, student, whatever the case is. So it's challenging to maybe think differently. And you mentioned some interesting things about lexicons, and language and things like that. That's cool to me because it's like, okay, what does he mean by that? Like, because there is no, and here's the thing, like, the fitness industry, maybe a little bit different. Seems we're getting a little, this is actually gets argued a lot, I think, in the firearm space, but it's wildly different in the martial arts space. And that is like this discourse, because everybody calls similar things different things, and in a lot of ways. And so that creates confusion, and with the confusion becomes frustration, and people go, no, he's wrong about that, when you're really saying the same thing. It's just got different stuff hanging on to it. So here's the thing, or different stuff connected to it. Here's the thing that I think is super impressive about this. We're going to talk about the characters that you brought to this. Is that somehow, and I don't know how the hell you did it, you put some very big personalities, some very big names, some very busy people that have cross pollinated the entire industry in their own ways that in a way have never come together before for whatever those reasons are. Either there was an opportunity, there was resistance to it, there wasn't they didn't see value in it. Somehow you got everybody in the same space at the same time. So I want to talk about that, like who these people are, and you kind of talked about in general what they're going to be delivering. Who's going to be delivering it, man? Who are these folks? And can you give us some insight to some of the things they might be specifically focusing on?
Yeah. So, I mean, the guy who's been doing this the longest within the private sector, um, as far as like the most known is Craig Douglas from
Mhm.
ShivWorks. So he created a original material for the summit, weaponizing language for tactical end states, and there's a lot of clips on the Combative Summit IG that
Mhm.
people can check out. Then uh, is Matt Larson, who is a
Yep.
guy. He's responsible for creating the Army's combatives program. He's also the current director of combatives at the West Point Military Academy. So Army's going to be doing his stuff the way he said to do it for, I don't know, at least another 100 years. So that's cool. Then we have Cecil Birch, Immediate Action Combatives. Cole Miller, who's he's a combatives instructor now, but he was a UFC veteran. Uh,
Love Cole.
Cliff
Mhm.
Byerly, he's a former LAPD gang cop, MARSOC Marine, an old school hard dude, and he's
Gritty.
got like pretty much every credential: jujitsu black belt of multiple martial arts, wrestled since he was 5. Like I don't know. Like, he's gonna be 57, and like I
He's
think
a
he'd like
savage.
still, yeah, he's still sparring Muay Thai, crazy.
No
Um,
thanks. I'm good.
yeah. And then, and also we have like the original combatives guy, the guy who's been really putting out public work first on putting martial arts or using martial arts with firearms and all these and having these training methods intersect was Kelly McCann. He wrote under the name Jim Grover for a long time,
Right.
but he's been around since like the 80s as far as putting out material. He's one of the first people to like shoot a red dot pistol. Like yeah, that dude's he's gonna be 66, and I wouldn't want to fight him. Like he'd hurt me. The way that would change my life. So yeah, like even if I won, it was just like it wouldn't be a good time. But like then we have Ben Albin from Redbeard Combatives. We got we got a guy coming from it's one of Arian Genetti's guys from Knife Control
I know Aaron.
Concepts.
Yeah, I've had
Yeah,
Aaron on the show. He's actually
yeah.
taught one of his courses here at our gym. Yeah,
Oh,
I
fantastic.
know
Yeah,
him well. Love Aaron.
so yeah, he taught at the summit last year. We had Nick Delgadillo from Starting Strength, Fletch Fuller. He's longtime cop, longtime trainer. Spoke Ialita, Ialefi, Range Master TACCON. With Sam Ferguson, Kentucky cop, jiu-jitsu black belt, and like a successful MMA jiu-jitsu career. He's medaled in the no-gi worlds at blue, purple, brown, and black. Like so, he knows a little bit of jiu-jitsu. And and Jerry Wetzel is he's known for his empty hands knife defense.
Mhm.
And we'll do this exclusive for Iron Sights. I haven't announced this yet, but we're also going to be having Alan Belcher, who is a longtime MMA veteran, bare knuckle fighting championship heavyweight champion. If you guys don't know, I mean, he's the guy who saved us from Husmar Palhares, and so
That is awesome. That's I love our Insights exclusives, by the way. So thanks
yeah,
for doing that. But
yeah,
that's
for sure.
exciting.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then we have Mike Sanford, who's Craig's
Right.
jiu-jitsu coach. He's a bare knuckle MMA fighter, so he's going to be teaching some bare knuckle MMA. And we got Tom Kyer from Sayok Tactical Group, and
Yep.
yeah, so it's just yeah,
That
just like
is
yeah,
that is a cast of who's who's, man. I mean, again, this is a very sort of I am an infant in even getting into this stuff, but as I've been sort of studying and getting linked to different people over the last couple of years, I mean, what that again, I'm extraordinarily impressed that you're able to get all those people to agree to be in the same place at the same time. Secondly, to actually get them there, which is harder in and of itself. That doesn't just happen. Hey, we set this date, can everybody make it? This takes a lot of organization. But I think the bigger thing to bring to the table on why I'm impressed by this is there's a in these industries and in these circles, there is at there is some risk, and I think this is felt by like the people. I'm not saying individually that they feel like this, but I think in general, they're very careful about who they put themselves in the same room with and who they associate themselves with for good reason. Uh, there's integrity things there. There's also like a fear of osmosis that this guy's a douche. And if I'm hanging out with him or teaching anywhere near him, even on the same, in the same place, like the same menu of items, I'm going to, that doucheness is going to rub off on me somehow. And people are
Right.
going to see me as that. Um, I again, this is a thing. I mean, you're chuckling there, but like I hear this all the time, especially in the firearms industry and the fitness
100%
industry. Is
true,
like,
man.
nope,
100% true.
I'm not doing that. No, that guy's there. If that guy's going, this thing's gonna suck. I ain't doing it, and I don't want to be associated with it. Can you talk about how this has evolved? Because again, I'm slightly mind blown at risk of overdoing it on that end. Like, I don't know how you did this, man. So, what's been the process to get these guys together, and how's that worked?
Well, I mean, the first thing I have to say is that it's a group effort. So it's not necessarily like I'm doing it. I'm just kind of, I guess, the face for it as far as like banging the drum, like, hey, this thing's going on. You guys need to see it. It's awesome.
Mhm.
But it's 100% a group effort.
Awesome.
And the other thing is like all these guys, like they're interested in the material. They're interested in solving the problem. The idea of a combative association is that it's something that is, it's first systems martial arts agnostic, and secondly it's brand agnostic. It's like who is doing work specifically to solve a tactical end state. And as far as like why the guys have trusted me is like, um they I've developed organic relationships with them because I'm interested in the work myself. I was trying to solve my own problem when I met these guys, and um, and I've told them this before. Like, I don't have a problem being number two. Like, and I think a lot of people, they have to be the man, and they just can't help themselves. And I think that's why um, they're not necessarily good at cultivating relationships with others. I don't. For me, it's like I like if Scott Howell comes and there's a door there, I'm gonna hold the door for Scott. Like,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? Like, and I think people, um, I don't know. I think that's just the problem. It's like I don't got a problem being number two or number 22 or 200. I don't care. Right? I want to solve the problem.
Yeah, I don't know if it's unique to the space or not, but I have noticed that, and I mentioned that in the previous episode. Just there's a certain level of humility that exists in like the people that you just mentioned, and some might say, I don't know about that. They might argue that across one another who does or doesn't have the bigger ego or whatever else. My point being, you you find that those that have been in this long enough that are actually have lived long enough, experienced enough, and are in a position to do the things that what we're talking about with the summit, but also all the other things, like Matt and what he's doing with the army and so forth, is that there's a certain level of humility there that they're totally okay being number two. They recognize where their strengths and their weaknesses are and what they can provide, and they're not trying to overreach.
Right.
In fact, a lot of times to get to that point, you've had to not just fail, but you've had to fail miserably many many times, and whether that's being punched in the face or it's failing at business or the communication network or whatever. So they recognize, like, in order for me to do the thing that I want to do, which is deliver the information in the best way possible, I have to be around people that can help me do that because that is not what I do or do really well. And so what I see you doing and what I've seen happening as of recently is those faces, those names are popping up from last year. And I assume that's where they're coming from, but from last year's summit, just in the current media that we're seeing for the summit, and it's impressive. Just it's not, and what I mean by that is none of it none of it is headgear and gloves and blue guns or rubber knives. None of it. It's all these guys walking through philosophy, walking through methodology, and taking that more cerebral approach to delivering information. And that's what encourages me about Go, because I think, again, from the outside looking in, what should you expect? Well, this hasn't ever been done before except for the one time that you did it. So if you missed it like I did and had major FOMO as a result, because I didn't realize at the time, like we had connected, right, we had connected right before, and I didn't realize it was you. Like I didn't know who I was talking to. I was talking to whoever was behind the Combatives page. And then when it all came out, I'm like, holy shit, I missed this. It was just kind of a timing thing. But my point being is, what are you going to get when you get there? So you're going to get these people. You're going to get this amazing information and wealth of knowledge. How are they going to get it? Like, what should they expect in terms of like how the event's going to run? Because I think this is the thing that people ask, like, man, is it worth it? What's actually going to happen? Like, do I need to go ready to roll, for 16 hours a day or whatever else? What should they expect?
So the direct answer for that question is no. Like you'll get out of it what you put into it. So like uh if you're trying to go and like get tune up with other students and everything like that, like it's just not that kind of place. It's just not. It's a laboratory, not a coliseum. It's going to be like so the overall intent for this is there's a couple things to solve. Is the first problem is the investment, right? People have to make sure that they typically go to a course, they'll have to buy ammo, they'll have to buy hotels, and they'll have to go to like some really remote location that they may not know. And that kind of diverts attention from the things that they want to do and the things that they have to do, right? And sometimes training is the thing that you want to do and have to do, but it also kind of create an issue because now it's like, all right, this is less money I could spend on my family.
Hmm?
So the summit wants to solve that problem in that, like, we're going to provide all the training gear, all the holsters. You've got dummy knives, you've got dummy guns, holsters, everything like that. You just need to come. There's water bottles, water, notebooks, a bag. Like, you just need to come. And also, and as far as the location is going to be in a coastal town that has like a beautiful beachfront view. It's in September, so the weather's not crazy hot, but not cold either. So it's going to be nice weather, nice timing, nice place. There's going to be things to do with you and your family. You can come train all day, go out to a nice dinner later on in the evening. Even bring your wife and your kids out to the summit, have them hang out. So really a real family oriented event. Um, so as far as like the value, it's like you have pretty much a who's who as far as instructors go, as far as people who have been integrating the pieces and have been doing so successfully, have a long running record of training every three-letter agency, every global hitter that you can think of. And on top of that, you have it in a nice place. All the equipment's provided for you. Everything is thought as far as like what the student experience will be. And so far, everybody that came last year, and I understand it's biased, but these are not my words, that it was like, wow, I thought it was going to be good, and it was 10 times better than what I expected it to be. And that was a reoccurring theme because it's like, it's not just who's instructing, it's also who's coming. You're going to run into people that you've been probably following on Instagram for a while. You're going to run into instructors, pro fighters, students of other skills. And it's just like this massive network where, because combatives is one of those things where, yeah, it's its own thing, but it's the one circle that's in the entire Venn diagram as far as tactics and training go. It's an underlying condition, just like fitness is. And how to express that and how to train that properly, there's just no better place to do it. And as far as gaining the information, like, to be a person who wants to defend themselves and you want to like get no BS, actionable
Right.
resources, like, you can run these guys because every instructor is going to be working 2 hours most. So you have the whole weekend to run them down and just like ping them for questions.
So that immersive experience, I think, is what gets lost sometimes in when people are kind of valuing. The question always is it worth it? Um, you mentioned a lot of reasons that make it worth it. Like, there is no like a lot of added expense, right? You don't have to worry about you don't have to worry about taking firearms, ammo, shipping ammo, showing up on the other end, your stuff not being there, all that. You just have to get there. Taking care of, students' needs, I think, is important. I think it's unique. You've taken care of the family end of things too, which that's an important thing for me. being away from the family. I know it is for a lot of other people, and you've had this thing out on the calendar, far enough, and it has a really good reputation to where making a commitment to it kind of makes sense. I've not been to that location before. It sounds cool, and I probably could quote unquote sell that. Right, I could sell that to my, I could sell that pretty well, right? Well, kids, family, they might be into this. Hey, it's a little resort. We're going to the thing. You guys can have fun all day. Well, dad or whoever goes and hangs out with a bunch of big, strong dudes. But the other part of this is the value that comes with that immersive experience where you're going to literally be rubbing shoulders. You're not going into with 12 students, 16 students, whatever, to a class where you hope that you get some one-on-one time with the instructor that happens to be delivering the material, who might have an AI there because he's there part of the time, but not all of the time because whatever. You can go have regular conversations or very in-depth conversations about the material or whatever else, and these dudes are open to having those combos. That was the big thing that I heard out of last year's experience, is that it was awesome because these instructors that not only showed up to the same spot were also engaging one another in the venue right afterwards, and you could be a fly on the wall, or you could walk right into the conversation and talk to whoever you want, and how approachable these guys were about it, and how much fun and that they were having just being a part of the thing, which again is very hard to do. So again, I think that value is extraordinary. And I always said this about a lot of the events I go to. Like, I go for the people, so that's a huge draw for me. And I bet there's some fireworks. There's probably some pretty good conversations. If that you get yourself involved in, and again, maybe even some fireworks at times. With heated debates and stories being told and everything else.
It was, I don't know. There was like no conflict, Everybody was just like, what do you think? And it was it was a discussion. There were no debates, because
Sorry, me.
debates are more, or excuse me, arguments are like posturing. Everyone was like kind of discussing. It was like they were both observing something and then talking about the thing that they see from their perspective. It was never. I've never seen, at least while I was there, I didn't see anybody like get into like heated debates or anything like that. It was a very interesting conversation. It's like the conversations, even from the students to instructors. Like we had, I know you had him on the show, Matt Pranka. He came out,
Mm-hmm.
um, and for the listeners, right? That's how much I believe in this thing. Like, I wanted a no BS guy like that guy to come, and people know, like, as far as like the public costs of associating, like the public costs of like having a dude like that with an audience like that and putting on BS is huge, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and I was like, hey, dude, come free of charge, no strings attached. Just give your honest feedback, And he's been incredibly positive as far as like his experience there, as well. So, and then like having a guy like that, one among many,
Mm-hmm.
having conversations that they had about their approach to tactics, their approach to training, their end states, and why they do the things that they do. And it was incredible. And just like having other professional fighters look at this stuff and like have this opinion that, wow, combatives was this thing where you had these kind of like these bullshito guys, and now it's actually becoming real martial artists, real tacticians.
All right. So this is going to be an awesome experience for anybody that goes. Sounds to be an awesome experience for the instructors and the talent that's going to be there. Obviously, all the participants. You were mentioning, with the great feedback that you had from people kind of coming at it from all different angles, which is a whole other thing. Like, if you like to kind of get in front of the people that you follow and like and comment and engage with on Instagram, this is kind of one of those events, and it's very cool. Like I said, I love going for the people. And to be able to shake hands and have face to faces with the people that influenced me in such a positive way and given so much to me, like you. So, what other, if anything, exciting things can people expect when they go? And with regard to the Combative Summit, what anything you want to tell them about?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a lot planned. We're still working on another thing. I can't really talk about it just yet, but it's definitely going to be a lot more fun than watching a shooting match. So yeah, we've got some real big things going on. Really want to make it an event that the whole family can enjoy, that you can enjoy beyond just the training, that it gives you a chance to kind of actually live it, as opposed to kind of things that you don't really get to. You get to shoot at a target, but you don't necessarily get to know, like, how do you really going to perform when those things go. And so I think what happens here that's different with what we do versus kind of the performance shooting side is that most people, they just don't have the bandwidth to go for a GM. They don't. I'm doing it. I mean, I'm putting in the work because I'm an instructor, so I have to.
Mhm.
I don't get that option. But I think as far as for individuals, like um, I think that they lose interest. I mean, it's really hard to lose interest in something like this that you get to take with you in the gym, in the mat room, on the range, and you're constantly like, now you have a real career path as a person, as a self defense enthusiast, as far as like how you're going to develop yourself, and it's constantly interesting and constantly challenging you to improve in ways and get your life together in ways that you may have not expected.
I think these events are so important. Like, again, the more often people are doing these things, just putting all these great people in the same room and giving opportunities for people from all over the country to get together to do it. You mentioned that as one of your main goals, and we talked about starting strength earlier, and I bring that up only to say is like there's those programs are far reaching. They go across the nation, right? So it allows people to get together. There are these meeting places, but to be able to bring everybody together and give people somewhat of a novel experience to encourage them to explore it more, to understand it more, to talk to more people about it. This shit's important. It's kind of the impetus of the podcast. It's just being able to have people on that can spread the good word and reach people in different ways. So this is again, I'm super stoked for you. I'm super impressed. I've mentioned that many times in terms of what you've been able to put together, and I do appreciate you also mentioned this is not just you. You just happen to be the face in front of everybody. This is a team effort. Um, so we can support that thing as best we can. Like where do people go? How do they sign up? What's the process for them? All that stuff.
Yeah, so you're going to go to combativesummit.com. So we have the early bird prices up until July 5th. It goes up. So right now, so you got about 5-6 weeks left, depending on when this podcast drops. But
It'll be consistent to that because we're going to
okay,
get this out right away. Yep.
so yeah, so you got about 5 or 6 weeks left to get that early bird pricing. And whether or not you do it early or not, you're going to get a free T-shirt. You'll register. You'll get you'll put in your shirt size, so you'll get an event T-shirt as well. You're going to have a lot of you know goodie bag as far as like a training notebook, a pen, a towel. A bag and all that to carry in. We'll have water all around. So you just need to show up, need to make it your business to come out. You don't need to bring ammo, no, nothing live, no live ammos, no live guns. I mean, we'll also do safety pat downs and everything like that. So, yeah, so we've thought of every detail, mainly because like we do this for our own courses as well, but
Mhm.
also, just as something that we would want. Also, we make note for the ladies. We make note to let the guys know to cut their nails, wear deodorant too, because that'll suck for 3 days of that.
If you
So
know, you know. Yeah.
it's an important detail. So yeah, guys, you just come out and I'm telling you, it's really going to change your life. It's incredible experience, and I understand it's bias coming from me, but it was truly the best training experience I've ever had doing that, and seeing how it all came together.
Well, as my plug, I hope to make it this year. I am right now. It looks very good in terms of my calendar. So just got to solidify a few things. I can't wait to be out there. Um, so there's a couple things. I'll keep my fingers crossed. I gotta tick a couple things off before I can fully commit. Working on that now. I just encourage everybody to, at very least, go over and follow the Combative Summit page because you're putting out so much content of these folks that we've already detailed today. All this great stuff that they're putting out. It's in a different way, so you're going to hear information maybe a little bit differently than you might get it from other pages and other people. And it also, if you're a little sitting on the fence and you're not really sure if this is the right thing for you, certainly I think absorbing some of that content will let you know whether this is the right flavor for you or not. So go follow the Combative Summit page. It's awesome. And you'll see it in my story because I want to help. Continue. I'm trying to repost just about everything you're putting out, man. Because I do. This is one of those things where I think, look, the more people we get involved, the more we're going to learn. The more you're going to learn, the more I'm going to learn, and the better this thing gets for everybody over time. So you'll find your stuff in my story for sure. And if there's anything I can do beyond that to help you, promote this thing, bring people into it, get the message out, even if it's maybe getting together again before the thing actually happens. That's an open invitation, man. You just let me know.
Awesome. Yeah, man. I just love how we connected, having similar ideas and based on different backgrounds. Is just, yeah, man. So that's what this is all about. So I'm excited to keep talking to you and see how, I don't know, like where this is going to go 5 years from now. So yeah, I'm just excited for the future.
Same, man. That's the best part about this. It's just this two dudes talking, trying to help one another out and promote the message for the good people that are out there. So, look, man, thank you again for all the time that you provided me in both episodes of this thing. Again, open invitation to talk again. I hope when we put out the first episode, I got actually a lot of feedback, good feedback about you and just particularly you, just as an
Oh,
individual,
cool.
not just the summit. And I think that speaks volumes. That happens sometimes when I put stuff out, just people going, man, what a good dude. I've known this guy for a long time, or I'm happy, that I had no idea about this. Like, thanks for introducing. This is just another example of another great guest you've been able to have on that people need to hear about. So, again, thank you for spending your time with me, man. I wish you all the best going forward with the summit and all the things that you're doing in your journey. Keep up the hard work, man. And thanks again.